Despite the fact that Pokémon Story Mode is all about single battles, the official competitive scene is an entirely different world. VGC, the 4-on-4 double battle format, is where the real meta happens. And if you've played even a little bit of it, you already know that there's one Pokémon that stands miles above everything else. And no, it's not Mega Rayquaza or Calyrex Shadow, even though both are obviously ridiculous. The real king of VGC and the greatest Pokémon this format has ever seen is actually Alola's Fire-type starter, Incineroar. Throughout multiple generations, rule sets, and restricted formats, Incineroar has stayed dominant. Not just good or top tier, but meta-defining. The kind of Pokemon that forces your team to prepare for it no matter what you're using yourself. Today, we're taking a look at why Incineroar became the undisputed GOAT of VGC, how it got here, what makes it so strong, and why after all these years, nothing else has even come close to its level of dominance, and why maybe, just maybe, Incineroar's future might not be as secure as everyone would expect. Before we get into Incineroar itself, we need to dive a bit deeper into VGC history. For decades, one thing has been absolutely clear in doubles. Intimidate is the single best ability in the entire format. Why, you may ask? Well, because in VGC, Intimidate instantly weakens both of your opponent's Pokémon the moment it hits the field, whereas in singles, the ability only ever has one target. Now, before Incineroar ever showed up, the role of premier Intimidate user went to a few key Pokémon. Arcanine was the original face of the ability. Solid power and bulk, good typing, and access to reliable utility moves made it a foundation of early VGC formats. Then we got Pokémon like Scrafty and Hitmontop, which took the concept even further. See, Intimidate was great on its own, but these Pokémon paired it with one of the strongest moves in doubles, in Fake Out. Being able to drop both opponents' attack and instantly shut down one of them for a turn with Fake Out was incredibly powerful, and these fighting types became instant VGC staples because of that. But the real breakthrough came with Landorus Therian. Not only did Landorus have Intimidate and insane natural stats, but it also brought something game-changing: U-turn. Landorus Therian could pivot out, come right back in, and constantly reapply attack drops throughout the match. It was bulky, it was flexible, it hit almost as hard as a Groudon, and easily shaped entire metas around its presence through Black and White 2 and Gen 6, all the way up to a couple months into Gen 7 when Incineroar got access to its hidden ability. You guessed it, Intimidate. And not only did Incineroar compete with the previous Intimidate users, it outclassed all of them at once, because Incineroar was the first Pokémon in VGC history to combine Intimidate, Fake Out, and a pivoting move, in this case U-turn. This meant that it could soften physical attackers on entry, stop a threat instantly with Fake Out, and then slow pivot out to do the whole thing again later. What really pushes Incineroar even further beyond every Intimidate user that came before it were all the extra qualities it brought to the table. Its Fire-Dark typing is a hard combo to punish in general. It hits a huge portion of the format for neutral or super effective damage and offers 6 resistances and an immunity to Psychic types. Fire-Dark may have 4 weaknesses to Water, Ground, Rock, and Fighting, but the great thing is that apart from Water types, all these other types are usually represented by physical attackers, which of course get weakened by Intimidate. Incineroar's stats are nothing to scoff at either. Base 95 HP with 90 in both defenses gives it pretty solid bulk even before Intimidate is factored into the equation. And base 110 attack means that it can still pack a punch even if you don't actually invest in Incineroar's attack. Base 60 speed may be slow but is actually perfect for its role, as it makes Incineroar slow enough to safely pivot with U-turn and bring in its partners without exposing them to damage. Every single one of these stats work together to make Incineroar into the behemoth that it is. But the real icing on the cake is Incineroar's move pool, which is genuinely absurd for a support Pokémon. Strong, reliable stab moves in Flare Blitz and Darkest Lariat mean that it's never passive and can pressure opponents when needed. Incineroar even had an exclusive Z move in Malicious Moonsault, which let it blow past a lot of Pokémon in Gen 7 with an unexpected amount of burst damage. And then you have the utility, which is stacked beyond belief. Knock Off for item disruption, Throat Chop to shut down sound-based moves, Will-O-Wisp to cripple physical attackers, Snarl to weaken special attackers, Taunt to stop status moves altogether, and Roar to force out boosted Pokémon or put an end to gimmicky strategies. No Intimidator before it, not Arcanine, not Scrafty, not even Landorus Therian had this level of flexibility. Incineroar could fill more roles on a team than any other Pokémon without ever feeling like a liability. Now, you might think that after Incineroar put up absurd usage stats in Gen 7, Game Freak would finally step in and tone this thing down, but no, nothing could be further from the truth. Instead of nerfing the world's most oppressive Pokémon, they gave it another ridiculous tool in Parting Shot in Gen 8. So now, not only could Incineroar intimidate you on entry, cripple one of your Pokémon with Fake Out, and pivot out to do the same all over again, it could also drop your Pokémon's offensive stats even further as it pivoted out. At this point, Incineroar was just mandatory. So surely, Game Freak tried to nerf it in Gen 9, right? Well, kind of. To their credit, they did introduce counters like Clear Amulet to block Intimidate and Covert Cloak to stop Fake Out flinches. But then, in classic Game Freak fashion, they immediately turned around and handed Incineroar another insane support option in Helping Hand. So now the cat could not only tank hits, cripple your entire board and pivot out, it could also actively boost the damage output of its teammates. And to make everything worse, Incineroar could now also change its typing on the fly with Terra, so that it could do its job even in the face of something like a Kyogre. Now here's where things get even more interesting. For the first time in years, Incineroar might be facing some competition for its position after Pokemon Legends CA quietly gave Scrafty access to the aforementioned Parting Shot. And with that, Scrafty now has access to the infamous trifecta that makes Incineroar so great: Intimidate, Fake Out, and a pivoting move. What makes this such a big deal is that Scrafty was already one of the default Intimidate users before Incineroar arrived, and now it has every single tool that makes Incineroar the GOAT, with its own advantages on top of that. See, Scrafty actually has higher base defenses than Incineroar, with just 3 weaknesses instead of Incineroar's 4, though one of them is admittedly a double weakness to the best type in the game. Scrafty's lower speed also means that it performs the slow pivot role even more safely than Incineroar. And the move pool is no joke either. Scrafty has access to moves Incineroar would literally kill for, like Foul Play, Super Fang, Angor, and Coaching. And if that wasn't enough, Scrafty also got a brand new Mega Evolution with far greater bulk and power, which could push it even higher as a VGC staple. For the first time ever, Incineroar might actually have some real, legitimate competition in the exact niche it has completely owned for nearly a decade. Will Scrafty's new kit be enough to dethrone the GOAT? Or will Incineroar's unmatched consistency stay the norm? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the cat's ironclad position has never felt more threatened.